Hello, you are listening to the Child Care Director's Chair podcast. Your host, Erica Sacosio, invites you to join her community of passionate and inspiring leaders in the ECE field, where she discusses, reflects, and shares the best ways to invest in our children, families, teachers, and community. Because after all, we know they are the heartbeat of any successful program.
Imagine a world where every child's academic journey is seamlessly supported, not just during school hours, but beyond. What if after-school programs and tutors teamed up to create a powerhouse of support for school-age children? In today's episode of the Child Care Director's Chair, we're going to dive into the dynamic collaboration between these two essential resources and explore how their combined efforts can lead to unparalleled academic success for students. So stay tuned to discover how the synergy is changing the game for education. We will be joined today with Gabby, a Step Ahead Tutoring Services, and also the podcast host for Hot Topics podcast. So welcome to the show, Gabby.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Tell folks a little bit about how you came to be a tutor, just a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I started off as a tutor in college. I had a work-study grant in my financial aid package, which just means that the school will pay you to work. So of course I had to find a job, and a lot of jobs love college students, so because it's not coming out their pocket, it's coming out the school's pocket. So I looked in the listings, and one of them was an after-school tutor, and I thought, okay, that sounds easy. I can do that. I can help some kids. And so I did it, and it was actually a foster care program for high schoolers. And, I did that, and I enjoyed what I did. It's helping them academically. It's also getting to know them on a social level, building rapport, learning about the foster care system and how that works. So it was a lot that went into it, and it got me hooked. I continued doing it. I stayed with the after-school program for about 2 more years, I think, and then I went into it independently. I also worked for 2 other tutoring companies, but then those companies shut down, which also pivoted into my independent tutoring. So I did that for several years, and then I decided, let me turn it into a full-fledged business where I can hire people, right, and actually have a name instead of just Gabrielle, right? So I can have an official name, and so I made that big leap in 2013. Got myself, got myself incorporated, and I've been sailing ever since.
Awesome. So I thought that, with the start of school, this really made sense to talk about this. I run an after-school program. You've come from the after-school field, and academics is one of the many areas that we focus on in after-school programs. So let's maybe discuss how after-school programs and tutors can maybe collaborate effectively to address a diverse academic needs of students. What are your thoughts about that?
Definitely collaborate. From my understanding of after-school programs, a lot of them, there's a lot of things that go into it. There's, I think primarily it's for parents that have to work late and are not able to, pick up their kids around 3:00. So, they stay in after school. The children stay in after school programs until about 6 or 7. But there's things that can be a part of it, right? It's not just babysitting, you can incorporate tutoring into after school programs. It's a chance for kids to get their homework done. I think that's the first one. The second one is understanding the homework, right? It should be used. After school in general should really, it's a lot of things, but one of the things that it can mainly be used is homework help and and homework assistance, right? And even just tutoring as well, so all of that can be added into an after school program to utilize those hours effectively. So, so that way by the time the child gets home, the homework is already done or completed or, or broken down in some way. And it's one less thing the parents have to worry about, right? Um, so it can be incorporated into after school programs, the tutoring aspect, and it should be, especially if it's fresh, like it's in the mind, it's fresh as soon as they get out of school. So that's the time to, all right, lock it in. What are you doing for homework? Let's help. Let's get it done. Let's break it down. So at least it's fresh in the mind. It's out the way, and you're not waiting till late at night when they're hungry, when they're tired, but you're doing it as soon as they get out of school. So there's the time aspect. There's also the memory aspect. But also, and especially because they're likely to, depending on where the after school program is, they're likely to have other students in the same grade or in the same school or in the same neighborhood. So that's another opportunity for group tutoring, right? Because you're likely to have similar students within a particular demographic. And, if you're likely to have a lot of fourth graders, a lot of fifth graders, depending on where the after school is, right? So you may have students within the same school, right? So because there's that advantage of after school programs of catering to a specific demographic, not really by choice, but because of happenstance, right? You can incorporate group tutoring in that way. And so it's not just one child, you're doing a group of fourth graders, a group of fifth graders on the same topic, right? And you can hit up multiple students in that way. So there's a lot of ways that tutoring can be incorporated into after school programs. It does take a bit of creativity. And understandably, some children, they just don't want to do anything as soon as they get out of school. Those are some factors you got to factor in. But in general, it's a chance to, and some students just kind of going back, they may need that chance to unwind. But if on the larger scale, if tutoring can be incorporated into after school programs, whether it's single tutoring or group tutoring, that will be very effective for the after school program. And that can even be a marketing tool for parents as well, because a lot of these programs ain't free, right? So especially if they're paying for it, they could see, oh, well, we offer tutoring, we offer homework help, right? So as soon as your child gets here, we work on it, and it's one less thing for you to worry about. And that could also be a marketing tool for parents as well. So I think there's a large benefit of incorporating tutoring into after school programs.
Yeah, we talk a lot on the show too about like how to differentiate your program from others. So if you have a good academic program at your after school program, it is going to be attractive to parents. Also, if you're looking at additional revenue streams, like you can offer tutoring services at an additional fee if you don't want to make that part of, or if you want that one-on-one instruction. So maybe it's you offer group as part of your program, but if you want one-on-one, you can then purchase, a different package and bring in additional revenue to your program. I also think when you're hiring teachers, be strategic about it because, we often, especially in after school, we're looking for people who are good in sports or good at art or music to bring those talents into the school. And I think you should do the same when we're talking about staff who bring in that academic piece. So maybe finding somebody who is a professional tutor or has a great deal of experience running tutoring programs or doing one-on-one instruction with students. So, because you want to make sure the tutor knows what they're doing too. That would be the worst thing, is that you say you offer academic help, but you really don't, or it falls short from, what parents expect. What strategies do you think after school programs can take to implement or integrate tutoring services in a way that enhances the overall academic impact? Like, how do we make sure that what we're offering is really elevating our students' academic success?
I would say, well, you pointed it out, right? You want to hire staff that can provide that, right? So it, I mean, there's a couple of things. So one, like you touched on already, you can hire staff that can provide it, right? So, I mean, there's staff that just want to deal with more of the caregiving part, but it would be helpful to business owners to or daycare owners to also hire staff that can provide the academic tutoring part as well, and actually make sure that they can do it, right? So it may be it's determining your budget, because hiring is not cheap either. So you may want to find staff that can do both, right? The caregiving part and the academic part. Um, so of course, I mean, if you can afford the extra staff, if you can afford the to conduct the hiring process, right? Because it costs money to run background checks and put out ads to find people. You have the staff that is responsible more for caregiving, and then you have the staff that is more responsible for the academic preparation. So to find staff that can do it, right? Which is what you touched on. Another thing is maybe you may not have the time to find staff that can do that. So then you may want to outsource, right? So that's where something like my company would come in, right? So if you don't really want to go through the hiring process, you'd rather just kind of find an established company and let them do all that, you can do that as well. So that's another option for daycare owners to do, is to establish partnerships with someone like my company, A Step Ahead, that'll bring their own tutors and their own staff, and with the expectation that that company's doing their own vetting, right? So they do their own vetting and their own background checks. So it's just a matter of just hiring someone to bring in their own people, right? So there's a couple of ways to kind of do that. So you're doing it yourself. You're taking the time and the energy and the money to hire people for your staff that can provide the academic part. It'll more conveniently if they can do the academic and the caregiving part as a way to kind of save money, but it does require a little bit more time and effort. If you're able to give up the time and effort, you can find the caregivers on one side and the academic people on the other side. And then another thing you can do is, if you don't want to do that at all, you'd rather just outsource and just kind of pay someone to do that on their own, you can establish partnerships with established tutoring companies that can add that value to your daycare center.
Yeah, so there's a few things that I think that you said that I thought were interesting. So the first thing is, if you're running an after-school program in a school, because some people do that in a school, you may be able to hire a teacher from that school to work at your program. So there's that transition. And the other thing is, if your center is part of a quality rating system, which many programs are, part of that quality rating system requires you to have teachers at a certain degree level, right? And then if you do have a teacher at that degree level, you will then be reimbursed from CCAP at a higher rate. You also, for private pay, can charge a little bit of a higher rate if you have, a teacher with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree running and teaching in your program. So that money that you had spoke of, you can get that money back in return if you hire a higher quality staff. The other thing, like you said, the partnership with your business also makes sense, working with another tutoring company, because who else works with kids? Tutoring companies. So they can refer children to go to your program, and you can refer clients from your after school program to the tutorer. So it is really a win-win for both businesses, because you're not, with the kids you tutor, some of those kids may need after school care, summer care, wraparound care, before school care, right? So it's a win-win for both of your businesses from a business standpoint. Why is it important for after-school programs to partner with tutors in order to provide comprehensive services? Because let's face it, like we may be working with children who have IEPs or may need additional supports that might be outside of our realm of ability.
Well, I think it's important, again, if you're not able to hire people yourself, um, which I think is it may kind of work against my interest in saying this, but I think it's better to hire people yourself as opposed to outsourcing. But I think the connection is important because, besides the part that it does add value to your program in terms of what parents are looking for, I think when it comes to academic struggles, academic issues, especially if students have IEPs, for example, what I find is, parents, there are some parents that don't really want to be involved in the academic progress of their children, whether it's they're too busy or they just don't want to do it. I think it helps the parents in terms of taking that responsibility away from them and incorporating it into your own after school program. So it's maybe that's the wrong phrase. Not taking it away from them, but alleviating the task from them. I'm going to change my wording there. So I think alleviating that task of, helping their children with the homework and, maybe understanding what the homework is and breaking it down for the child. Maybe they may not understand what they have to do because a lot of it is the new math and they didn't learn it when they were a child. And so they don't understand this new math business and they don't understand this new reading and writing business. So it's like, if they could put it on somebody else, they can do that. So I think kind of giving parents one less thing to worry about, I think is another great factor in adding the tutoring element to the after school program so that by the time that the child gets home, homework is done. They don't need to explain anything. It's just eat your dinner, go to bed, right?
Yeah.
There's one last thing to worry about. So I think it helps to incorporate into after school programs because it does give parents one less thing to worry about. And also, besides everything that we've said already, it adds value to the program. It makes things more attractive to parents, right? Even to, especially if the after school program is in the school. Well, no, if it's in the school, then not so much in the school, but I'm thinking more of like private after school programs. But even in the school, right? It makes, if it can be added to the after school program, it is attractive.
Yeah.
Parents, especially if they're paying for it. So, from a marketing standpoint, it's attractive to parents, but also the importance of partnering with other companies and just having the element in general within the program is there's that, like I was saying before, there's that period when, school is done and before they go home, right? So there's that 3 or 4 hour period where it's just like fresh in their minds. And then it's just, that's when you want to dive in, right? For the homework help, as opposed to letting 3 and 4 hours lapse. And then by the time you get to it, what's homework? What are we going to do again? Right? So they tend to forget. So kind of nipping it right in the butt, right? As soon as school's over. So there's that time factor that I was talking about.
Yeah.
But also it's, again, it's one taking, I guess, I don't know how else to phrase it, but you're taking that responsibility away from the parents and you're making things, although it's not an excuse, but you're alleviating a task from them. So
Yeah, I think, yeah,
explain it, right?
yeah, that's okay. And I think if we
Yeah.
focus also on the child, like you said, going back to, it could be difficult for a parent to teach child the new math if they've never learned it. So, too, I think just giving kids what they really need, the supports that they really need, and that would be to get them the adequate resources, which could be a tutor. The other thing that could be a great collaboration. If you can't afford to have a tutor on site all the time, maybe you hire a professional tutor to train your staff, and maybe they do something, once a month where they're training your team on how to support children academically too. Like if it's not in your budget to have somebody come 5 days a week all of the time, or you could do something once a week with the tutor that you come out and you teach a group instruction on how to do XYZ just to give a little bit more support to the kids. So I think that there's a couple ways that you can be creative and make it work in the budget. I know here in Rhode Island, we have private centers that rent space from the schools. That's why I was saying, maybe even in the school, especially some of our nonprofit facilities, they will rent space from the school because it's more affordable. And you can hire teachers that are already there looking for some after school time, or again, partner with companies like yours. What would you say if somebody is looking for a tutor? What should they look for? Let's say I'm like really jazzed and I said, you know what, I really want my kids to get a lot of support around academics. What should they look for when they're looking for a tutor to bring into their program?
Into the after school program or just
Like if I am a childcare owner and I want to hire a company like yours, what should I be looking for? Like, how do I just, because anybody's a tutor, like, what should I be looking for? What's the criteria? How do I know how to pick if there's 15 tutoring companies in my area?
So I would say, I gotta think about that one, but I would say, I mean, obviously, can you afford that? Well, I mean, I don't want to say cost is number one, but I would, so before we even get to cost, let's say that, do they, okay, I gotta think about this. So as the daycare owner, you need to determine how many tutors do you need, right? And how many students do you have? So you need to figure out you need a plan first. So are you looking for group tutoring? Are you looking for one-on-one tutoring? Are you looking for someone to come every single day, once a week, right? So you need to have a plan in mind before you go out looking for other people. So once you decide, okay, let's take an example. I really want I want someone to work with a kid one-on-one. So just kind of look for someone that needs help, right? Or just be on site. I'll send a child over just one-on-one, right? So when choosing a company, do they have adequate staff? So do they have enough tutors in their company to support your goal, right? Because, and you want to be realistic too, like if you have like 36 kids, don't get one tutor. Like I think that's ridiculous. So you need to be honest with yourself and don't waste the company's time, right? So number one, have a plan. What are you looking for? I want someone to do groups. I want someone to do one-on-one. I want someone every single day. So have a plan. So number two is find a company that has the adequate number of staff for what you're looking for. So if they don't have enough tutors, it's not going to work for you, right? So you want to find someone that can provide you with an adequate number of tutors for you. Number three, of course, you want to make sure it is within your budget, right? So if you want multiple tutors, to keep that in mind that you are paying for multiple people. So you want to make sure that it's within your budget, right? So how much does it cost? How many hours are you looking for? Are you planning on paying by the hour? Are you paying by the month? So you want to establish that in your plan as well and work that out with the partnering company. But and then of course you want to be realistic, right? Don't say I want 3 tutors and they come over and there's 46 kids. Like, no, don't do that.
So what's a good number? Like, what's a good ratio number? Just, I mean, again, because if nobody knows what that number should be, what it should look like.
I mean, ideally, no more than, I'm just thinking like of myself, like no more than, maybe like no more than anywhere between 3 and 5 kids.
Okay.
Tutors. So I think ideally would be 3 kids
Okay.
at a time. But definitely no more than 5 per tutor. So if you have 45 kids, then you need to have 9 tutors on staff, right? Preferably a little bit more, like 11 or 12, so that way that number is lower. But I would say anywhere between 3 to 5 students a tutor.
Okay. And is there any credentials or something that folks should be looking for when they're hiring a tutoring company?
Yeah. So, I will say for after school programs, I mean, if there is if they're connected to like the Department of Education, for example, or if they have some kind of grant, I would say make sure that the tutors have, honestly, I'm not quite sure how to answer that in terms of credentials, because a lot of after school programs are part of schools, for example. Like I'm thinking in terms of like private after school programs.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I don't really know how to.
So what? So are they licensed teachers? Like the folks that work in tutoring companies, are they typically licensed teachers in the state that they work in?
So it varies. So
Okay.
and they could be licensed teachers. They can just be college students. They can be
Okay.
high school students, former graduates. So like I myself, I am not a licensed teacher,
Okay.
but I tutor anyway.
Okay.
So when I have people on my staff that are not licensed teachers,
Mm-hmm.
I will say, depending on your program, if you need a licensed teacher, then find someone who has licensed teachers.
Yeah, there's not really any criteria per se. That's why I was asking, like, what should people look for? How do you know you're picking a right one? Besides, like you said, besides the money, how do you know that you pick, check the Google reviews or ask the school, like, tutors that they've worked with, or ask other, agencies that have worked with your company, or, anybody's company. But would that be one way that people could kind of vet out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. If you get referrals, if contact other people that's worked with them, Google reviews, like you said. So definitely do your research for
Okay.
sure.
Are there are there any specific subjects or skills that you've noticed there's a greater need for combining after school and tutoring support together to make sure that children are thriving?
Um, Maybe not. So generally speaking, not specific subjects, but I would say just foundational skills overall across the board. So things like adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, learning how to read, pronouncing words, writing sentences, writing paragraphs, writing essays, reading comprehension. So I have seen a deficiency in foundational skills. I've noticed it in after school programs, or just with students in general. I think it's gotten worse since the pandemic. So I have noticed that, and I think that, and I mean, it's difficult for after school programs when you have all these different grades, right? So like, how do you help them in a group? But I would say, I mean, whatever they present with, that's fine in terms of homework. But if you can carve some time out and hone in on those foundational skills, that'll do wonders. So teaching them long division, right? How to pull out details and use it to answer multiple choice questions. How do you write a paragraph? How do you write an essay, right? And that may not be grade specific, right? Because you can have a fifth grader who doesn't know how to add, right?
Yeah.
And then you have that advanced second grader, right? So it's not so much grade specific if you focus on foundational skills. So I think that will do wonders for the after school program if they can have some kind of maybe like a weekly workshop or something that can hone in on those foundational skills.
Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think people should know?
If your after school program is tied to the Department of Education, or maybe you're receiving a specific grant, or maybe you have a 3K program that's incorporated into the program, you definitely want to follow those rules. So I would say any kind of connections like those, you want to make sure you have licensed teachers on staff. But if you're more on the private side, it may not be so strict in terms of having licensed teachers on staff. So I will just say that. So if you're looking to advance yourself as a daycare owner, yes, I want to have tutoring in my program. I want to incorporate it. I would recommend that you hire your own staff. That would be my primary recommendation. But if you're not able to do that, you can always outsource to other companies. But then you would have to do more exploration when it comes to getting outside people to come in. So if, like I said, you may want to have licensed teachers on staff if your center is connected in any way, shape, or form to the Department of Education. But if it is not, if it's more on the private side, that it's not so strict. So those are my final 2 cents. So just know thyself. That's pretty much what it is.
Okay. So tell folks a little bit about where you're from and how they get in touch with you if they want to bring you into their after school program or their child camp.
Yeah. So you can reach out to me on I'll start with my website. My website is www.astepAheadtutoringservices.com. You could also call me at 718-568-9188. You could also email me success@astepAheadtutoringservices.com. So of course, all of this information is on the website as well. You could also find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Where else am I on? YouTube, WhatsApp, TikTok. You could also find me across those social media platforms as well. Just put in A Step Ahead Tutoring Services and I will pop up. But if any, connections, you want our services in your after school programs, I will say you can call me or email. So phone number again, 718-568-9188, or email success@astepAheadtutoringservices.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For those of you who are tuning in, I'd like to say thank you as always. We really, really appreciate your support. We hope that you're inspired about after school programming and things that you can do to really make sure that your students are academically thriving and just having a great time at your program. As always, remember, it's the little details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. And as always, have a great day. Bye.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Child Care Director's Chair.